In the previous episode, we saw how Xiaoning was hurt and angry after realizing that Li Shulai had lost interest in her. She found herself questioning everything, remembering how, in youth, we often idealize people and think about many possibilities. Next, Li Shulai, without saying much, offered her only a slight, enigmatic smile. Xiaoning wondered in confusion, what does that dismissive smile mean? Do you look down on me? Do you think I'm embarrassing myself? With that same calm smile, Li Shulai replied, Master Uncle only mentioned it casually. Don't take it to heart. We are merely a master's uncle and his niece. There's nothing more between us. Internally, he thought, it's clear she feels a sense of loss now that I'm no longer attentive. But, as her uncle, it's my duty to give her some guidance. He then added, it's impressive that Teacher Liao can write novels. Our country's cultural development has been lagging, which is a serious issue. The nation is progressing rapidly, so it's best not to get caught up in love affairs. With your strong academic record, you have great potential in scientific research. Why not focus on your studies and contribute to academia? The future of a country is closely tied to its scientific and technological advancements. If we lack hard power, our soft power will struggle even more, he continued. As young people, we shouldn't limit ourselves to small ambitions. We should aim high and work together for a balanced future. Xiaoning, taken aback, thought angrily, if you don't care, just say so. Why go through the motions with all these excuses? Does he truly despise me? Why lecture me like this? Turning away, she said, I asked an unnecessary question, so that's it. Li Shulai shook his head, thinking, if she doesn't heed my advice, she'll only suffer the consequences. Still too impetuous. Later, in the university library, Xiaoning was studying for exams with a friend, who noticed her somber expression. Xiaoning, are you worried about your graduation thesis? Her friend asked. It's not that, Xiaoning replied quietly. Then what is it? Her friend pressed, but Xiaoning dismissed the question. Her friend tried to reassure her, the defense is at the end of May, and we're still revising our theses. If we focus, we'll make it. You should concentrate on finishing your paper. Just then, Xiaoning noticed Li Shulai talking and laughing with Liao Kexin. Her friend pointed out, Li Shulai is here with that girl, Liao Kexin. Xiaoning's eyes narrowed as she watched them, irritation rising. Seeing this, her friend observed, falling for Li Shulai, are you? Embarrassed and blushing, Xiaoning retorted, when did Li Shulai start changing? Even if I'm hard to pursue, he shouldn't give up so easily. How can true love be so quick to fade? Her friend raised an eyebrow in disbelief. Could she be regretting it? It's only been a few days, she reminded Xiaoning. Li Shulai has been chasing you for over 3 years. Isn't that enough? With a sad expression, Xiaoning replied, 3 years isn't 30 years. I've always been the apple of my family's eye, the teacher's favorite, and a top student. Why has he been looking at me with such impatience lately? Even the idea of a simple bonding exercise was rejected. Not that I care, even if my grandma insists on it. Looking at her friend with tearful eyes, she added, I never really said anything bad to him directly. I just teased him sometimes. Isn't that a normal way to test someone in a relationship? Her friend replied gently, that doesn't exactly sound like a love test. Some of the things you said were quite harsh, actually. Xiaoning looked surprised. Why are you defending Li Shulai? Clearly he's changed his mind. He's the scumbag here. Smiling, her friend teased, maybe you're just deeply in love with him. Xiaoning, furious, shouted at her friend, what nonsense are you talking about? It's impossible. I would never like Li Shulai. She had forgotten that she was in the library where no noise was allowed. People seated around her turned to shush her, and Xiaoning quickly covered her mouth, apologizing to everyone. Turning back to her friend, she whispered, I just can't accept it. How is Liao Kexin better than me? Family background, looks, academic performance. She's inferior to me in every way. How can I possibly be less than her? Seeing Xiaoning's reaction, her friend Shuang smiled and said, all right. You don't like Li Shulai coming around. He's just confused after being rejected so many times. So he's acting indifferent. She added, calm down. Maybe he won't be able to keep up the act for long and will come back looking for you. Hearing this, Xiaoning smiled, her confidence restored. Shuang, you're right. He's just playing hard to get, pretending he doesn't care. With renewed resolve, she added, but if he does come back, I won't give him another chance. Shuang laughed. Don't give him a chance. Okay, auntie. Meanwhile, Li Shulai went to Huaxia Bank to check the balance on a card he had received from his master. He thought, How much does it cost for business tycoons to ask a master to predict their fortunes? For a master of this level, charging 100,000 shouldn't be an issue. He inserted the card into the ATM and clicked the balance button, but was stunned to see a balance of $2 million. Shocked, he thought, I helped Fei Long Technology take off, and Fei Long's father only gave me $3 million as a gesture of gratitude. But here, my master gives me this card, filled with so much money without hesitation. I am Li Xiulai. I'm reborn. I've worked tirelessly, revising papers, writing programs, networking with business leaders. Am I reborn as a rich man? Is this even possible? He steadied himself. Stay calm, he thought. Everyone has their own fate, and the wealth we receive is often balanced. Easy money like this can come with a price. If I spend it recklessly now, I could end up a pauper in the future. Besides, my life goals are bigger than just making money. I can't just take it easy now. With that thought, he decided not to withdraw any money, took his card back and left, thinking, this money isn't mine to keep. I'll return it when the time is right. Elsewhere, at YJ Yanjing Technology, Mr. Liu was deeply troubled. The company's turnover had dropped by 10% compared to the previous month, and he worried that if this trend continued, their IT chain stores might start losing money. This shouldn't be happening, he thought. The development of e-commerce is inevitable, but why is it progressing so quickly? Suddenly, Mr. Liu remembered a piece of advice Li Xiulai had given him. E-commerce will only rise to prominence if it has its own logistics network. One day, Mr. Liu, you'll understand what I mean. At that time, Li Xiulai had also handed him a business card, saying, if you ever need my help, feel free to contact me. Mr. Liu had smiled, slipping the card into his pocket, thinking, how could I take this seriously? Looking out the window, he thought about Fei Long Technology and wondered, since I already have a dragon, why should I look elsewhere? Meanwhile, at Fei Long Technology, Yang Fei Long was celebrating a record-breaking turnover for the month. Grateful, he thought. I have to thank Brother Xiulai for providing me with that new program. In such a short time, Fei Long Technology has soared and now leads the internet industry, driving rapid development. Standing by the window of his farmhouse, he enjoyed the beautiful view and mused, I wonder what kind of surprise Li Xiulai will bring me next. On the other side of town, Li Xiulai was marking specific locations on a map. I want to buy all these properties, he told his secretary. The woman smiled and assured him, consider it done, Mr. Li. We'll handle everything. Li Xiulai grinned, thinking, in the 21st century, what's better than winning the lottery? Land acquisition. He instructed her, sign the contracts, pay promptly, and secure the properties. She replied cheerfully, absolutely, we'll complete all the formalities within a week. As he considered the properties he was acquiring, his eyes welled up with emotion. Having money in hand is incredible. Mom, I finally have the freedom to buy a house. The sales agent was taken aback by his enthusiasm. This guy looks so ordinary, yet he's incredibly generous. But his taste in real estate is questionable, she thought, since he's selecting the least popular houses in each area. Handing him the documents, she said, please sign here. Secretly, she thought, these properties. Either the layouts are disliked by everyone, or they're notorious for accidents. He's too young to understand. Noticing her smile, Li Xiulai guessed her thoughts. She thinks I'm a fool, but she doesn't realize the real opportunity here. In his mind, he thought, when properties are demolished, compensation is provided for both the land and the building. With future housing prices soaring, real estate is the easiest way to profit without lifting a finger. Haunted house? It'll just be soil when it's torn down, and it'll all be my new investment. After signing all the paperwork, Li Xiulai prepared to leave. The sales agent approached him and offered, allow me to escort you out. Li Xiulai chuckled to himself. They laugh at me and call me an idiot now, but I wonder if they'll be as sour as cucumbers in a few months. As I recall, the government is set to issue a demolition notice for this land in about 2 months. He thought, I'm truly a man of high moral character, no taking advantage of the elderly, the weak, women, or children. Only select properties where the original owner has long since moved out. The next morning, early in Labor Park, Li Xiulai was practicing his cultivation, thinking, once the demolition notice is issued, the government will start negotiations with the affected households. This negotiation phase can be the most time-consuming. In my past life, many greedy individuals prolonged the process indefinitely over minor demands, leading to the infamous nail households that held out for better terms. Reflecting on the past, he thought, a smart negotiator knows when to quit. Otherwise, you risk losing more than you gain. In my previous life, I saw countless people who regretted missing out on wealth because they didn't negotiate wisely, he mused. For me, it's smarter to sign the contract early, choose a prime resettlement location, and benefit from the future appreciation. Plus, the sooner I sign, the sooner I'll have funds to repay my master. Finishing his cultivation practice, Li Shulai thought, today's assignment from master is complete. Now, time to submit my paper. He made his way to Professor Guo's office and handed in his graduation thesis. Professor Guo reviewed it carefully, nodding in approval. Well done, he remarked. Li Shulai hesitated, asking, is there anything else you'd like me to revise? Professor Guo nodded, and Li Shulai thought nervously, even after all those nods, he still has revisions? I wasn't expecting this. Leading Feilong technology was one thing, but this thesis, it's taken months of revisions to get here. Still, he waited patiently while Professor Guo reviewed the paper one final time. After a careful review, Professor Guo finally said, this time it works. A relieved Li Shulai asked, really? You're not kidding? Professor Guo chuckled. Yes, it's genuinely well done. I think this paper could even be submitted for awards. So, Shulai, what are your plans for the future? Li Shulai thought carefully before responding, while Professor Guo observed him with a sense of pride. Mr. Li is not only professionally competent, but also possesses noble character and a strong will. Even though his paper was well written from the start, he revised it more than 10 times without complaint, taking every suggestion seriously. Such dedication is rare. He's a rough gem ready to shine. It's only right to lend him a hand, especially since he was the only one who stood by me when others tried to tear me down. After a moment, Li Shulai responded, I don't have a clear plan yet. I might work for a while to gain experience, then perhaps start my own business. Just keep things vague, a mix of half-truths and half-lies, so I don't come across as too ambitious. Professor Guo smiled approvingly. Starting a business is a good plan. It's wonderful to see young people with ambition. Then he asked, are you free this weekend? I'd like to take you to a dinner party so you can meet some people. Li Shulai nodded and agreed, thinking, though I'm nearly financially independent now, I have no intention of being tied down to a 9-to-5 job. Professor Guo rarely introduces students to his network, so anyone he recommends must be someone he truly values. This is a rare opportunity to build connections in the financial world, and shouldn't be missed. Professor Guo then told Li Shulai, get yourself a cooler hairstyle this weekend and join me for dinner. Li Shulai smiled and nodded. Okay, Professor Guo. After leaving the office, he activated his transmission talisman, recording a message. I have a dinner with a professor from school this weekend, so I won't be able to visit Qingyun Temple. He then sent it to his master, Lin Shuhuan, who was relaxing in a hot spring. She noticed the talisman light up and thought, news from Shulai. She picked up the talisman and quickly replied. Li Shulai was pleasantly surprised by the instant response. This is even faster than a phone call, she reminded him. Don't neglect your cultivation. I'll check in with you later. Li Shulai responded confidently. Don't worry, master. I'm up early every day for training and have kept up with all the exercises. The weekend soon arrived, and Li Shulai accompanied Professor Guo to a high-profile dinner party attended by many influential figures. Inside, an older man with white hair was speaking to another guest. Boss Hu, he exclaimed. I heard you secured another $30 million deal. Congratulations. Mr. Hu beamed and replied, Boss Zhao, you're doing well too. You've got a good eye for talent. I invested in Feilong technology, and now look at its market value. Boss Zhao grinned and added, It's all thanks to a meeting I had with Buffett. He gave me plenty of valuable advice. Mr. Hu chuckled. That must have cost a pretty penny. Boss Zhao nodded, saying, The greater the investment, the greater the return. As Li Shulai and Professor Guo entered the room, Li Shulai was stunned to see so many well-known personalities, including some clan elders. Is Professor Guo's standing really this high? I always thought he was just an honest man who was occasionally bullied at school. Noticing Professor Guo's arrival, several guests approached to greet him, and Professor Guo, in turn, introduced Li Shulai. Nervously, Li Shulai greeted the group, and Professor Guo spoke up with pride. This young man has noble character and exceptional academic achievements. He's a rare talent and a future pillar of society. When I faced difficulties, he was the only student who stood firmly by my side. I hope everyone here can share some of your valuable experiences with him. The guests welcomed Li Shulai warmly, and one guest commented, Any student recommended by Teacher Guo is bound for great success. Another joked, Young man, do you have a partner yet? Professor Guo leaned over and whispered in Li Shulai's ear, These are all industry leaders. But don't be nervous, just stay calm and keep an open mind. Li Xiulai nodded and started conversing naturally with the guests. However, he thought to himself, I assumed this was just a casual dinner, but I didn't expect all these experts to be here. Mr. Zhao called out to the group. Teacher Guo is here. Let's all take our seats and begin. With that, the dinner party officially started. Inside the private dining room, Li Xiulai took his seat beside Professor Guo, thinking, my soul is nearly 40 years old. It's far more interesting to converse with peers like these than with immature college students. As the evening progressed, Li Xiulai had a few drinks with the others and became a bit tipsy. Turning to an older gentleman seated beside him, he remarked, I understand now. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. When trouble arises, people turn away. As they say in Lan, what doesn't defeat you makes you stronger. It's only through experiences like these that you learn who truly stands by you. The old man, surprised by Li Xiulai's wisdom, responded, Brother, though you're young, your words resonate with me. That saying, what doesn't defeat me makes me stronger. It's exactly right. The cold stares I received became fuel for my ambition. Eventually I rose above, and those same people were left behind. The look on their faces? Disgusting! He clapped Li Xiulai on the shoulder, saying, Brother Li, I regret not meeting you sooner. Li Xiulai replied warmly, It's not too late to know each other now. Please feel free to call me anytime. I'd love to hear more about your journey and learn from your experience. The older man nodded, saying, No problem at all. Then he asked, Where are you planning to work? Would you consider joining my company? Li Xiulai replied, I haven't decided yet. The older man handed him a business card, adding, Well, if you need anything, come find me at my company. Another elder, Wang Jianling, chimed in, I have a dream I'd like to realize. If you have any ideas, feel free to reach out. Li Xiulai thanked Mr. Wang, thinking, Mr. Wang is quite interesting. I'll have to find an opportunity to offer him some advice. Professor Guo watched Li Xiulai, noting his poise and maturity. Xiulai doesn't seem like a recent college graduate, he thought with admiration. After finishing his drink, Li Xiulai noticed a young woman with striking white hair seated across the room. She's been sitting quietly this whole time. Quite interesting, he thought. She hasn't said a word. Maybe she was brought here by her father. The white-haired girl noticed him looking at her and asked, Is there something on my face? Li Xiulai didn't reply directly. Instead, he walked over, offering her a gentle smile. The girl blushed, quickly turning her head to the side, flustered by his attention.